Antanas Guoga, more commonly known as Tony G, was born on December 17, 1973 in Kaunas, Lithuania. Already in childhood, he was distinguished by incredible intelligence and mathematical mindset. He managed to become the champion of Lithuania on solving the Rubik's Cube for speed. He was also fond of chess and went to a special chess school. It is not surprising that such abilities helped him to realize himself as a professional poker player in the future. At the age of 11, he and his family moved to Melbourne in Australia, where he graduated from high school and obtained Australian citizenship. Living in Melbourne, his love of games and puzzles persisted, and at age 15, he found poker. He had a natural affinity for the game, and by 18, he was a known presence in the high-stakes table scene in Melbourne. Tony G attributes much of his early success to his childlike looks. He was simply unimposing, and opponents underestimated him because of it. He used that to his advantage and was able to build up a bankroll of $200,000 before the age of 21. Hungry for bigger opportunities, Tony G got on a plane and flew to Las Vegas and even secured a fake ID. At the Las Vegas tables, no one underestimated him and the results were disastrous. In fact, he got out of Las Vegas with just enough money to get back home to Melbourne. He had learned some hard lessons and developed a more aggressive style in response to them. Tony G applied those lessons locally, and in a short period, he earned back that bankroll. In fact, he had so much success in Melbourne that he often had trouble finding games. Fortunately, it was about this time that the online gambling boom occurred, and Tony G took to it immediately. From the comfort of his own home, he could find games at any time that matched his bankroll. This was the first time in his life that he was able to treat poker as if it were a career, and the dividends were immediate. Through his online earnings, he was able to sustain himself and maintain a bankroll that gave him flexibility to attend the bigger opportunities throughout the world. Tony G attended his first live tournament, the European World Series of Poker, in 2001. He lost due to a bad beat before reaching the money. The next year, he got his first win when he defeated Devilfish Elliott at the World Heads Up Omaha Championship. In 2003, Tony G had a lot of cashes, including some notables such as the 5-Diamond Poker Classic at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. But for the most part, these were small pots, and Tony G realized he would have to make better use of his time. With his love for poker, Tony was well positioned when the online poker boom started. He invested in the industry and bought the domain name pokernews.com for $6,000, got a couple of programmers to set up the site, and started writing himself. At the end of 2003, Tony launched pokernews.com, which quickly became the world's leading live poker tournament reporting and news website. In the next few years, Tony established office in 30 countries as the company continued to grow. Heading into 2004, Tony G took some online business classes and he began to apply what he learned to his career. The goal was to treat his poker play as a business. He used his online play's expected earnings and scheduled his stops around the world for maximum potential. The result of that approach was less travel and fewer buy-ins, and it helped 2004 be his best year ever. That year, he achieved 10 final tables in all. His biggest finish was second place at the Grand Prix de Paris of the World Poker Tour, which earned him more than $400,000. Later that year, he was the bubble boy at the Mirage Poker Showdown, and that earned him about $70,000 more. The televised event allowed Tony's entertaining antics during the game to be picked up by the people in the industry, as well as poker fans all over the world. News of Tony's ability and style began to spread like wildfire in the live poker world and throughout online forums. This took the name Tony G to the new level, and Tony continued to gain notoriety by playing in so many more televised events. After the Grand Prix de Paris, PartyPoker.com took notice and offered him a sponsorship. Also, he had been on television a number of times and the audience clearly connected with him. Because of that, he started earning invitations to televised events based solely on his personality. His approach has rubbed people the wrong way at times, and he has some famous clashes with players like Phil Hellmuth. In 2006, he won the WPT Bad Boys of Poker 2 event. He wore a kimono throughout the event to promote poker in Japan. Also in 2006, he finished second to Yoshi Nakano while representing Australia in the inaugural Intercontinental Poker Championship, taking down $150,000. Tony G also has a way of endearing himself to people, and that's what makes him such an interesting character. When he won the Asia Poker Tour in 2006, he had, in his own words, become rich. So he split the pot and donated half of it to charities throughout Asia and Australia. Since then, he continues to contribute a significant amount of his winnings to charities throughout the world. In 2007 in Russia, Tony won his biggest ever cash game pot, a $3 million pot. It was a game of Omaha, 3 players were all in on the flop, and Tony won with the highest flush. In November of the same year, he won a tournament in Moscow, earning $205,000. Often telling his opponents that he has a big heart, Tony claims that he left all of his prize money with the officials to give to Russian orphanages, having been inspired to do so by Barry Greenstein's habit of donating all his poker tournament winnings to charity. In January of 2008, Tony received the Shining World Leadership Award in Melbourne, Australia. After that success, Tony G began to put a lot of focus on the WSOP and the EPT. Like most pros, Tony G wants a bracelet, and that's something that still eludes him. At the WSOP, Tony G hasn't come closer than 6th place, but he has some big cashes, including the $172,000 at the 40th anniversary event in 2009. At the EPT, he's finished as high as 3rd, which earned him about $500,000 in cash. A regular on the high-stakes televised cash games, some of Tony G's most famous appearances includes Party Poker's Big Game, Premier League Poker, PokerStars The Big Game. Tony G has been dominating televised cash games in 2010-11, with the highlight being the first ever player to reach $1 million on the table in PokerStars The Big Game. In 2010, Tony G became a sponsored pro with Party Poker, who he represented at the WSOP, the WPT, and the Party Poker Premier League. However, after building his own platform, TonyBet, he left Party Poker to be a rep for his own company. Tony G is best known for his aggressive, tricky, and boisterous play. Famous for his bad etiquette, including trolling his opponents at the table, Tony G once openly lied to Phil Hellmuth's face and then admitted it later, saying, "Of course I lied, it's poker." Representing Australia at the 2006 Intercontinental Poker Championship, he went up against Ralph Perry, a Russian player, and essentially bullied him into poor play. Tony G started to provoke Perry when he was deciding how to play his hand before the flop. When Perry called Tony G's all-in with the worst hand, Tony G proceeded to ridicule and lecture him.
All-in. You wanna do this? Do this properly.
And Ralph Perry calls. Tony G got to Ralph Perry.
Wow. You play very well. You play very, very well.
Wow.
Yeah! Yeah, baby! Come on, Russian, get out. It's time to go. Yeah!
Tony G was included in the list of politicians named in the Paradise Paper allegations in November of 2017, which was produced following an investigation by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalism. He was also discovered to be the founder and former shareholder of IBIS Media Limited, which is a publisher of gambling news on the Isle of Man. Tony G was banned from entering Russia in 2017, which he responded to on Facebook. Although Russian officials have not commented on the situation, Tony G believes he was banned because he's been a vocal proponent of anti-Russian policies, even resorting to trolling a Russian diplomat during a European Parliament hearing. In addition, he's publicly criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin, of whom he's not a fan, and he's offered public comments regarding Russian hacking and their attempts to influence election around the world. Nevertheless, Tony G feels he has nothing to apologize for, and he does not seem to be bothered by the ban. In 2014, Tony G married Isti Slapokite, a former psychology student who has worked as a photo model for brands such as Armani Jeans, Prada, and Max Mara. Tony G is heavily involved in promoting sports in Lithuania, particularly basketball, which he has loved since he has played it as a child. As a significant sponsor of the Lithuanian Basketball Federation, he paid a major share of their national team's £500,000 application fee to a wildcard entry in the 2010 FIBA World Championship in Turkey. Although they had originally failed to qualify for the championship, they were eventually chosen through their wildcard application, and they ended up taking the bronze medal. Tony G began establishing the Tony brands with the founding of TonyBet in 2009. The international betting company now operates with UK and Estonian gaming licenses, which allows it to be open to the entire European market. On September 8, 2016, Swedish company Betsson acquired the Tony G business in Lithuania for £6 million. Apart from poker news, he's the primary owner of multiple popular poker sites, including PokerAffiliateWorld.com and PokerWorks.com. Tony G understands the importance of community and the needs of those less fortunate. He has developed a reputation as a generous philanthropist. Tony also plays in many charity poker events and has contributed large portions of his winnings to various charity trusts and organizations. Tony G is also known for his charity and for establishing the Lithuanian Poker Federation in 2010. In 2011, Tony received the Royal Lithuanian Award due to generous contributions to his home country. Over 36,000 people participated in the poll and chose Tony G as the Lithuanian that promoted his country in the most positive manner. He is the Federation's major sponsor, and he has worked hard to make Lithuania team a presence at the FIBA World Championship and other world events. In 2014, Tony G confirmed that he will not be returning to professional poker. Tony G occasionally plays high-stakes cash game poker. In 2018, he took part in the Party Poker The Big Game high-stakes PLO game alongside poker pros such as Isildur One, Sam Trickett, and the casino owner Rob Young. According to the Hendon Mob, Tony G is the #1 Lithuanian player and 178th on the all-time money list with $5.6 million in live earnings and the biggest cash of $552,000. However, because of his many other activities, his total net worth is much larger. In 2014, the Lithuania Tribune reported his worth to be more than $36 million.